underground feeder-off cable can be run and stapled under a modular home just like a regular site-built home. This is based on the understanding that the modular home is constructed in a manner similar to a site-built home, particularly concerning its foundation and structural support. If the modular home is set on a brick foundation without a steel chassis, the wiring methods applicable to site-built homes are generally acceptable. When installing a UF cable, ensure it is securely fastened to the underside of the floor joist or other structural members. Use staples specifically designed for a UF cable to avoid damaging the cable's insulation. The staple should be spaced closely enough to provide adequate support and prevent the cable from sagging. A general guideline is to place staples every 12 to 18 inches along the run of the cable and within 12 inches of any box or fitting. It is crucial to comply with the National Electrical Code (NEC) requirements for installing UF cable. UF cable is designed for direct burial in the earth and is moisture resistant, making it suitable for under-house applications where it may be exposed to dampness or physical damage. Before commencing any electrical work, energize the circuit to ensure safety. Always wear appropriate personal protective equipment (PPE) such as safety glasses and gloves. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is de-energized before handling any wires. When running UF cable, avoid sharp bends or kinks that could damage the cable's insulation. If a bend is necessary, make sure it has a smooth radius. Protect the cable from physical damage where it passes through walls or floors by using appropriate bushings or grommets. Proper grounding is essential for electrical safety. Ensure that the grounding system is properly installed and connected to all electrical boxes and equipment. Use grounding clamps and connectors listed for the purpose. When connecting UF cable to electrical boxes or equipment, use fittings listed for use with UF cable. These fittings provide a watertight seal to prevent moisture from entering the box or equipment. Ensure that all connections are tight and secure. If the UF cable runs are exposed to physical damage, such as from vehicles or equipment, protect them with conduit or other suitable means. Rigid metal conduit (RMC), intermediate metal conduit (INC), or Schedule 80 polyvinyl chloride (PVC) conduit can be used for this purpose. Ensure that the UF cable is sized appropriately for the load it will carry. Consult the NEC tables to determine the correct ampacity for the cable based on its size and insulation type. Consider voltage drop when running long lengths of cable to ensure that the voltage at the end of the run is within acceptable limits. Proper labeling of circuits is essential for future maintenance and troubleshooting. Label each circuit breaker or fuse with the description of the circuit it serves. Use a permanent marker or label maker to create clear and legible labels. When working with electrical systems, always follow the NEC and local electrical codes. These codes provide detailed requirements for safe and compliant electrical installations. Consult with a licensed electrician if you have any questions or concerns. Modular homes, while constructed off-site, are still subject to the same electrical codes and standards as site-built homes. The primary difference is the construction process, not the electrical requirements. Therefore, standard wiring methods are generally acceptable. Ensure that the electrical system is inspected and approved by a qualified electrical inspector. An inspection will verify that the installation complies with all applicable codes and standards. The electrical inspector will typically check for proper wiring methods, grounding, and overcurrent protection. When installing UF cable under a modular home, consider the environmental conditions. If the area is subject to flooding or excessive moisture, take additional precautions to protect the cable from damage. Use waterproof connectors and fittings and elevate the cable above the expected flood level if possible. Properly support the UF cable to prevent it from sagging or coming into contact with the ground. Use cable ties or clamps to secure the cable to the floor joists or other structural members. Ensure that the supports are spaced closely enough to provide adequate support. When running UF cable through bored holes in studs or joists, protect the cable from damage by using bushings or grommets. These bushings or grommets will prevent the cable from rubbing against the edges of the holes. Ensure that the holes are drilled in the center of the studs or joists to maintain structural integrity. When splicing UF cable, use connectors listed for use with UF cable. These connectors provide a watertight seal to prevent moisture from entering the splice. Ensure that the splice is properly insulated and protected from physical damage. When installing UF cable in wet or damp locations, use conductors with moisture-resistant insulation. UF cable is typically rated for wet locations and can be used in these environments. However, it is essential to ensure that all connections and splices are properly sealed to prevent moisture from entering the electrical system. Properly ground all metal enclosures and equipment to prevent electrical shock hazards. Use grounding conductors of the appropriate size and connect them to a grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system typically consists of a ground rod or a metal water pipe that is in direct contact with the earth for 10 feet or more. When installing UF cable, avoid running it in areas where it could be exposed to physical damage from rodents or other pests. If necessary, protect the cable with conduit or other suitable means. Ensure that all electrical boxes and enclosures are properly sized for the number of conductors and devices they contain. The NEC provides guidelines for box fill calculations to ensure that the boxes are not overcrowded. Overcrowded boxes can lead to overheating and other electrical problems. When working with electrical systems, always follow lockout/tagout procedures to prevent accidental energization of the circuit. Lockout/tagout procedures involve disconnecting the power source and placing a lock and tag on the disconnect switch to prevent it from being turned on accidentally. Regularly inspect the electrical system to identify and correct any problems. Look for signs of damage, such as frayed wires, loose connections, or corroded terminals. Repair any problems promptly to prevent electrical hazards. When installing UF cable, ensure that it is properly supported and protected from physical damage. Use appropriate supports and protection methods based on the specific installation conditions. Follow all manufacturers' instructions and recommendations when installing UF cable and related equipment. The manufacturer's instructions provide detailed information on proper installation techniques and safety precautions. Properly terminate the UF cable at both ends using appropriate connectors and terminals. Ensure that the connections are tight and secure to prevent loose connections and overheating. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for future expansion or modifications to the electrical system. Leave sufficient slack in the cable to allow for future changes. Ensure that all electrical work is performed by qualified and experienced personnel. Electrical work can be dangerous, and it is essential to have the knowledge and skills necessary to perform the work safely and correctly. When installing UF cable, avoid running it in areas where it could be exposed to extreme temperatures. Extreme temperatures can damage the cable's insulation and reduce its lifespan. Properly insulate all exposed conductors and connections to prevent electrical shock hazards. Use electrical tape or other suitable insulation materials to cover any exposed conductors. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for electromagnetic interference (EMI). If the cable is run near sources of EMI, such as motors or transformers, it may be necessary to shield the cable to reduce interference. Ensure that all electrical equipment is properly labeled with its voltage and current ratings. This information is essential for future maintenance and troubleshooting. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for corrosion. If the cable is installed in a corrosive environment such as near salt water, it may be necessary to use corrosion-resistant materials. Properly bond all metal parts of the electrical system to create a low impedance path for fault current. Bonding helps to prevent electrical shock hazards and ensures that overcurrent protection devices will operate properly. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for lightning strikes. If the cable is exposed to lightning, it may be necessary to install lightning protection devices. Ensure that all electrical equipment is properly grounded to prevent static electricity buildup. Static electricity can damage sensitive electronic equipment. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for voltage surges. If the cable is exposed to voltage surges, it may be necessary to install surge protection devices. Properly torque all electrical connections to ensure that they are tight and secure. Over-torquing can damage the connectors, while under-torquing can lead to loose connections. Use a torque wrench to ensure that the connections are torqued to the correct specification. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for harmonics. Harmonics are distortions in the electrical waveform that can cause overheating and other problems. If harmonics are present, it may be necessary to install harmonic filters. Ensure that all electrical equipment is properly maintained to prevent failures. Regular maintenance can help to identify and correct problems before they become serious. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for fire hazards. Use fire-resistant materials and follow all fire safety codes. Properly document all electrical work, including wiring diagrams, equipment specifications, and test results. This documentation is essential for future maintenance and troubleshooting. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for energy savings. Use energy-efficient equipment and practices to reduce energy consumption. Ensure that all electrical work is performed in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. Follow all environmental regulations and use sustainable practices. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for future changes in technology. Use flexible and adaptable wiring methods that can accommodate future upgrades. Properly dispose of all waste materials generated during electrical work. Follow all local and national regulations for waste disposal. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for human error. Use checklists and other tools to minimize errors and ensure that the work is performed correctly. Ensure that all electrical workers are properly trained and certified. Training and certification help to ensure that workers have the knowledge and skills necessary to perform electrical work safely and correctly. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for unforeseen circumstances. Be prepared to adapt to changing conditions and solve unexpected problems. Properly communicate with other workers and stakeholders to ensure that the electrical work is coordinated and integrated with other activities. When installing UF cable, consider the potential for long-term reliability. Use high-quality materials and workmanship to ensure that the electrical system will perform reliably for many years. Ensure that all electrical work is performed with integrity and professionalism. Adhere to ethical standards and treat all stakeholders with respect.